Smuggles and Snuggles. Snuggles and Smuggles. Snuggles and Smuggles.
You did it again. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Rukus Reactions. I'm Joshua Blaylock.
And I'm Shanna Blaylock.
And today we're doing a Kickstarter preview for Smuggles N Snuggles. Just to let you know, this is a prototype version of a game that will soon be on Kickstarter, so some of these components could change. Smuggles N Snuggles is a two-player game where you choose to be either part of the City Bear family or the Country Bear family and try to take over your opponent's territory. Basically, every turn you move two of your bears in any direction, either to an empty space or on top of another one of your bears, or there's two additional move types. They are Smuggles and Snuggles. To smuggle, you take a low value bear and you can move him any number of spaces across your own higher value bears. So basically, they're just like carrying the bear around and passing him on from one bear to another. Mm-hmm. And to snuggle, you take one of your larger bears and place it on top of one of your opponent's bears of an equal or lower value. And basically, it's like they've got him in a hold and that person's bear can't move again until you move your bear off of them.
So snuggling, not so sweet as it sounds.
Yes, absolutely. So this is a micro game. There are 8 cards of the Country Bears, 8 cards of the City Bears, and 4 of these law cards. The law cards are optional cards that you can use, preferably probably after you've played a couple of games and really gotten the gameplay and the strategies down for it. And they just add a little bit of extra flair to one of the spaces in the very center of the board. This one allows you to move the same bear twice. This one allows you to smuggle bears that are a higher value. This one allows you to only snuggle with bears that are of a lower value. And this one can be snuggled with any bear and allows you to move a third bear during your turn. You place one of these cards in the middle of the board during the game, and the effect that they have applies specifically to the space where you place them. The strategy in this game I really think is interesting. I enjoy that there's not a lot of space in the board, and you're trying to figure out not only how to get your bears down to the other player's side of the board, but also how to keep the other player from getting their bears to your side of the board. So, I like it because basically all the bears have a value from 1 to 8. And the large bears are great because you can move them very easily down to the other player's side of the board. But if you take all your large bears, and move them to the other player's side of the board, you don't have any defenses or any way of preventing the other player from taking their bears and moving them to your side of the board. So there's definitely a balance there of which bears I'm gonna move down to that side, which bears am I gonna move to this side. Plus, you have the aspect of smuggling, which allows you to take your smaller bears and very quickly move them to the other side. But of course, if the opponent has their back row covered by large valued bears, then your smaller bears still won't be able to actually take over any of their back row.
There's a lot of playing defensively and offensively at the same time because you really don't have the ability to separate your cards in such a way that you have enough cards to play defensively and offensively. So it changes pretty quick in the game, and winning happens pretty quick. I'd say on the box it says here, 13 minutes. That sounds about accurate. Could be a little shorter, a little longer, depending on how you play. But you don't have the game. Changes pretty quick.
Yeah, and we've definitely played at least one game that I think probably lasted about 5 minutes. But the end came really quick, and sometimes it can be unexpected if you're not paying proper attention to like what your opponent's strategies are and what you're doing, because you're too focused on your own strategies and not so much on them or whatever. Then sometimes they can jump in.
I would say that that's the trick there. There's this balance between playing offensively and defensively through the game. If you're playing all defense or all offense, there's a good chance that you won't win, as I've been focused on a little too focused on either and have lost. So
and you really have to be able to, from one turn to the next, really switch gears very quickly. You can be going offensively, and then all of a sudden you missed something, and your opponent started pushing towards your side, and then you may have to switch to something defensive. Another interesting aspect that I really like about this is something that you don't really consider would be a problem until you've run into it. You every turn have to move 2 bears. So, and this is one of, I guess, the problems of trying to be too defensive. Every turn you have to move 2 different bears, but you can actually be in this defensive mode where you're like, I've got everything exactly how I want it to be to prevent my opponent from getting through my defenses. But then you realize, oh, well, I have to move a couple of my bears. Like maybe all of your bears are sitting on top of your opponent's bears and you're blocking them from moving, but you absolutely have to move 2 of them, which means that you're going to open up some of their bears to be able to move in. Or because cards can be moved diagonally and not just straight, if you have a line and this is basically where all of your cards are, then if you have to move 2 of them, you now have at least 1 diagonal spot available where your opponent can sneak in through your defenses and get, over to your side.
I really do think they add something to the game. After you've just played it once with the base, I would go ahead and add one of the law cards to the middle.
Yeah, the last time we played with one that allows you to move any card onto the middle space at any time, and if you do that, then you can move an extra bear. That really changed up the strategy in some interesting ways.
Yes, because see, the thing is that I guess near the start of the game, we all wanted that extra move, and so we were all jumping onto that card. Yes. And then what happens is now there's this pile, and all these cards down here, they're not leaving, they're just there. Yeah. And so you lose some of your cards. So you got to think it's kind of a trade. Lose my card to get an extra move, And sometimes that works out in your favor, but you wouldn't want to do it the whole game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bottom line, it's really simple, but it has a great strategy. Yes. For a simple game. For a simple game to have as much strategy as it does, I'm quite impressed with this. And it being short, I wouldn't consider that a negative at all. I feel like you need a good short game for a filler in between longer games or as a gateway game, especially if you're dealing with kids with a short attention span. Yeah. This is a great game to play. And then, because it's so short, you can play it again. And again, you can do it 2 or 3 times in a row if you want to. And it's fun. So I would recommend it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. I think I've played some micro games, and a lot of micro games tend to feel very shallow. And even though the strategy that they offer can be good and solid, it's often simple. The strategy is itself is like one note kind of thing.
He's very sneaky when he plays with me. Yeah. Gets me every time. And just remember, snuggling isn't always a good thing.
No, it's not. Again, this game is coming on Kickstarter. I'm not really sure when. I believe it's somewhere around the end of June. So just keep your eye out for Smuggles N Snuggles by John Unnert. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Feel free to comment below and let us know what you think of this video. And don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see y'all next time. Until then,
Rukus rest. Smuggles and Snuggles.